Hi, Simon. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Um, I wanted to talk to Simon about using his intuition in business because he is intuitive, but also has his own software company. So he is a perfect person to ask a few questions about intuition in business, which I know is a subject that he's pretty passionate about. So I'm excited about this discussion. Um, okay, so I wanted to ask you, how has using your intuition in business benefited you?
So I think one interesting thing is most business leaders use their intuition whether they know they're using it or not. So I think I always have been using my intuition
Yep.
unconsciously to some extent. And, that's just partly because I guess of who I am, but also a lot of decisions that you make when you're starting a company or when you're running a company are fairly low information decisions, which is the ideal scenario for your intuition to come to the fore, really, because you don't have anything for your sort of cognitive brain to work from. So I think the interesting question for me is, how has being more aware of my intuition and being more open about what I'm doing benefited me? Just being more conscious about using that. And I think, it is just easier to let people know around me that I have ways of thinking about things, that just because I didn't go through a massive calculation or planning process or something like that doesn't mean that it wasn't thought through. And we have ways of helping people ask me for more information about things if they want to. But I think also it's about managing yourself. So, your intuition doesn't tend to be very reliable if you're angry or if you're stressed, for example. So I wouldn't tend to make decisions in that sort of state. I
And then
know that
that's because your vibration's low. Yeah.
yeah. So, and then the most important thing is to get your vibration higher, and then make decisions. Similarly, I tend not to like making decisions on a deadline unless I do. Sometimes I'll just know something's right, or sometimes it's like I don't know what the answer is yet, and I'll just go and sleep on it, and then I'll know. And I also know that there are certain times of the day where I will get more information. So, the shower is a very typical one. Also, like as I wake up in the morning, that sort of liminal zone between wake and sleep in the mornings, I tend to get quite a lot then. And I think, you just respect it. It's less I am using my intuition. It's more I'm beginning to understand how my brain works and how to get the best out of it. So, it's just respecting that, really. And I think a lot of business people do it. They just possibly won't. They'll say they're wise, or they won't say anything about it.
Follow
Richard
their
Branson,
gut. I just followed my gut.
Yeah,
What do you
exactly.
think that is?
Yeah.
The food in your stomach told you the answer?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just a model for decision making, really. And you can go and read lots of stuff about intuitive decision making and all that sort of thing. And the only we might have theories about where that information comes from.
Right.
I think that one thing I do have a massive problem with is a lot of the sort of business attitude of rational decision making and and planning and all that sort of thing. I find that very bizarre.
Right. But Simon, this is like a subject that you're passionate about. I've seen you talk at like seminars about this and stuff. I mean, you're going into a tough crowd. You're going into the rational thought, loving crowd.
You see, I don't think they are.
It's a tough sell, what you're saying.
I don't think they are actually as rational as they claim to be. I think they tell each other they're rational.
Oh, and they just keep it secret.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, because they're just too afraid to say. Yeah, there's a whole... if you go to sales school, they'll tell you that sales, purchase decisions are generally made by emotion, by gut instinct. And then you need to give the decision maker a rational basis for the decision as kind of cover.
So, so they're privately understanding what you're saying, but maybe not outwardly, because they kind of want to.
Well, I think it might be a little bit scary, because it does mean that you probably wasted all your money doing your MBA.
No, no, it's both. Simon, it's both. MBAs are good. They have value. No.
Well, I think
because the other side does pull off of our knowledge. Sometimes they get upset that, I don't have, a medical degree, because they're like, trying to show me something.
So this is, well, this is the thing. It's like, if you think that an MBA will make you a better decision maker, you are probably wrong. You need to go meditate. You need to go and walk in in a forest. You need to blank your mind. I mean, one of the things I used to read, and certainly every moment of the day I was listening to podcasts or audiobooks. Now I schedule time to be just alone with whatever turns up in my head. I think an MBA gives you language, and it gives you appreciation, and it gives you things to notice. But I think what a lot of people come off MBAs is thinking, I can now make good decisions. And the answer is you can't. That is, I think, for the low information decisions that frankly you get paid the big bucks for, your intuition is generally the thing that comes to the fore. And, also I noticed, I've got a lot of people who work for me. They are more than capable of making the obvious decisions. If it gets onto my desk, it is ambiguous. It is low information. It's generally high stakes. And they're looking to me to make a decision based on that. And those are the really interesting things. And also, let's face it, most of the, if it's a fairly straightforward formulaic decision, it's going to get automated anyway, So yeah, I'm not going to say, people think they're getting something from an MBA, which they're not. They're getting a language, so you would be possibly, if you had more of a medical degree or something like that, you would be able to speak more about that, detailed medical stuff in readings and things like that.
Right.
And I think it's similar, it's similar in business,
Well, I can't give that. I can't sit there and pretend like I'm a doctor or anything in sessions, but there's like, they combine the intuition with the education. So exactly. I definitely don't want to steer people away from MBAs because I think they have value. And I think that's married with, I think the education is married with the intuition because they pull
I think
what you know.
Yeah,
the other side.
I think, and there is a change that I understand in MBA education that used to be very sort of formulaic and go do this case study and all that sort of thing. And they're doing much more get in touch with yourself, psychological safety, meditation, that sort of thing. It's getting softer.
Do you have an MBA?
No.
Oh, okay. I was curious.
But I read a lot.
Neither do I.
Yeah. But I did read a lot. Yeah. I mean, but it's like any kind of education, almost always education's worth it. The problem is that we lie to ourselves and each other about how we make decisions. And yes, there is a cognitive way to make decisions, and then there's relying on your intuition. And we're never taught how to manage that intuitive part of ourselves.
Or a lack of awareness. Because sometimes I talk to people in sessions and I'm like, yeah, that was actually from the other side. They're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Let's use a doctor. Like a doctor is going through a checklist of like their lab work. Like, what am I going to have this patient tested for? And so they're going through the checklist. I feel like I should also test you for, diabetes or, whatever. Like that could be them channeling,
Yeah.
So
and
it doesn't occur.
I noticed that.
Like they don't realize it,
Yeah. I think I got better at noticing that once I'd done my course, and, because I think, and I'm having some bit of a journey with a friend of mine, and she's basically going, I'm not intuitive. And I'm like, you are intuitive. Everybody's intuitive. What you're not doing is noticing.
To a certain extent, yes.
Yeah.
It's like a bicep you have to work out at the gym.
Yeah. But what they're doing is they're being very I must solve it. I must work at this. I must solve this problem. Whereas I don't think you should work at something or think hard about something. You should go and walk in nature and go, I wonder what would happen. And then when stuff appears in your head, you should pay attention to it. And when you find yourself strangely compelled, when you find yourself compelled to do stuff, just follow it. A lot of the things that the innovations that my company have done have been as a result of me just doing something, and people go, well, why are you doing that? How can you justify that? Well, I don't know. No idea. It just feels like a good idea at the time. I'm going to go and do it because if I do that, then interesting things happen.
Or pray for help. Actually pray for help. Say, hey, I really need help with this situation at work. Can you please help me?
Yeah, and it's
divine guidance. Divine guidance.
Do that before you go to sleep. You wake up with the idea, with the solution.
Yeah.
So I think there's also a really interesting ego thing, I think, and it's not just an ego thing. It's like if I'm lucky. I own the company, so I don't really have a boss as such to impress. But I think a lot of people might be in a management structure where they do have to appear rational, thoughtful, expert, and all that sort of thing. Whereas I'm kind of like, I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know where that idea came from. It seems like a good idea at the time, so let's go do it. That's not a very impressive thing to say if you need to impress people. And I think that's, although I do try and encourage my people to sort of follow their nose on stuff with good results.
Well, another thing that I noticed is that you're pretty good at using language that people can relate to. You're not like me, where it's like law of attraction this and spirit guides this and higher self this. Like you can say like different phrases. Like I just feel like we should go in this direction, or like what kind of language do you use to try to relate to business people who might not be open to hearing, spirit guide, higher self, law of attraction, where they might close their mind.
You don't mention it.
Okay.
Really. So you might want to think about this and think about that, and and you can, I think the delight for me is bringing an appreciation of a sort of more intuitive style of decision making and a respect for that part of you to the hard sort of world of business and business problems and all that sort of thing. And
so it's
you
like
have
respect
to do
your
it.
Intuition, like notice that you have this inside of you, and like respect it and utilize it and bring it forth. Yeah. Would you suggest meditation?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe not explicit meditation, but why don't you just, stop working? And, if you're banging your head against a brick wall on a problem, stop working on it and go for a walk.
Right. Quiet your mind.
Yeah,
like you said, nature, connecting with nature is perfect.
Just make space,
Put your feet in the sand, in the grass.
Because I think people think too much. They think they can solve their problems through thinking.
Their mind's busy, and the other side, has to come through.
So I think, because the thing is, you're not going to reach a rational business person by talking about things in a very flowery language. You're going to get there by helping them notice things, and then if they ask, you can tell them, well, this is actually what I think is going on here. And they can have their own models for what they think is going on. But I say, you look at Richard Branson, for example. He lives on Necker Island. What's that? It's a holiday resort, basically, he's built. Well, hey, how do you make good decisions? You hang around with people who are having a good time and everyone's vibration time.
Yep. So then do you notice that? Do you notice that you get information about your business while you're just having dinner with your family, and do you jot them down, or what? When you're walking your dog, do you get downloads?
Oh yeah. Okay. I'll get walk and dog, shower, early one morning wake up, and you just jot it down on your phone or something like that. Or it, if it's important, it'll come back to. I mean, sometimes I'll get, if I've got to write an email or something, I'll get the phrases I could be using, and I'll write those down. But generally, it'll come back. They will just keep knocking on the door. I think we have in the cognitive realm, we have a sort of scarcity attitude towards thoughts and ideas. Whereas my current view of sort of the intuitive world is it's all around. You just have to notice it. and it's so plentiful you wouldn't believe it. All the answers to all your problems are there for you, and will keep hanging around until you're ready for it, until you remember it. So, I just wander through life quite happily, really. It's very bizarre, really. I mean, everyone will think you're hyper rational and full of lots of information. And, I do read stuff and whatever, but it's the low information things. What should we do next? What should I do in this situation? Is this interesting? You see, I've got a load of plants behind me. For some reason, I thought that getting a bunch of plants would be a good idea, and that then led me into a problem that I now have so many plants and I'm not organized enough to water them. So now I've got that little thing there. There we go. Which monitors them. But that's actually a well-trodden thing where I'm messing with stuff for apparently no reason whatsoever, but I'm pretty sure that will cause a technical breakthrough back at work. And that's a very common path for us. Is I will just be messing with stuff for no reason, probably at home, and then boom, there's the relevance. And it only makes sense afterwards. I think this is one of the other problems sometimes people have, is that they think that progress is made by setting goals and going for it. Whereas for me, I'm more like going with the flow and seeing what's happening and what reactions do I get and how do I feel. And I'm sort of making lots of small micro decisions about things. And then you end up doing something really cool, but it's only in retrospect can you see the path that took you there, which is absolutely the opposite of how our culture views you should be making decisions and planning and that sort of thing as a company.
So it's like what you're being guided to. Well, okay, so you mentioned, well, first of all, I just want to address the plants really quick. The other side loves gardening. They love it when we put our hands in the soil and connect with Mother Earth. That's very, like cleansing and high vibe. So plants, 10 thumbs up. But another thing I wanted to ask is your, you mentioned that you use, intuition in making general, decisions on like where you're taking the company or how to solve, technical issues or whatever. Do you also use it on like, like which clients to pursue or, HR, things like, what do you, are there any other areas that you feel like your intuition has benefited you with regards to your company?
I think everywhere. I think certainly with HR issues, you'll tend to get a strong steer. I mean, you have to be a little bit careful in that you might get swayed by an individual in front of you, particularly if you've got somebody on the sort of narcissistic spectrum. It's very difficult to sort of let your intuition have space.
Yeah.
When they've sort of
you have to let go of that ego. Yeah, you have to let go of that ego energy.
Well, yeah, but basically they're just very, very good at manipulating people. But then again, it comes back to an awareness of how my brain works. And so, for example, if we're interviewing people, I will tend to do the first screening interview, and I'll have a sort of gut feel about whether or not we're going to give them a second interview. But I also won't really pay attention to their CV or their resume, because again, that's cognitive facts. And frankly, also, it doesn't really matter what's on your resume, because your resume just tells me what you've done. It doesn't tell me what you're going to do. So I'd much rather have a fairly unstructured conversation with you, and then I'm going to come out of that with a feeling. And sometimes
you do get your knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Sometimes I will have a specific piece of fact that says yes or no, and sometimes it might just be a gut feel. And as long as everybody around me knows what's going on, we're all fine. I have to say HR is possibly the hardest place to use, for me to use intuition, because I'm in it.
Well, I'm sorry, what is?
HR issues, people issues. Okay. Yeah. In terms of customers, I have one friend who she does marketing engagements, and she will use her intuition and to decide whether or not she should be working at a particular company or not. In our business, it's fairly straightforward. We don't. Generally all customers are good customers, unless you've got somebody who just feels very wrong, in which case we'll just price ourselves out of it and depart as friends.
Just doesn't feel like a good fit. Well, one of the things I know about you is you're extremely nurturing towards your employees. I mean, you're pretty close with them. So do you use, because I noticed that you kind of water them like a seed and watch them grow. Do you, and morale is really important to you. So do you use your intuition also with nurturing your employees? Like, oh, this person feels kind of off today. Maybe I should pull them into my office and talk to them. Or,
Yeah,
you know,
and to the extent that people will tell me, so I've got one colleague who I'd also class as a friend. She was a little bit off this morning. It's like, that's interesting. And she slacked me halfway through the day and said, just, this is what's happening for me. And that's actually quite good for me because if I know, then I don't have to worry.
That level of disclosure says a lot. Some people don't have that kind of relationship with their boss,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I've always been very upset about is how terrible relationships are in business. It doesn't have to be this bad,
Well,
we don't have to be this horrible to each other.
just cold and stoic. And
This whole professional demeanor thing, generally, I don't think you should be the things you would accept in your personal life and you would encourage in your personal life. That should be the same at work. It shouldn't be okay to be horrible to people. It shouldn't be okay to lie. It shouldn't be okay to deceive.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be okay to enjoy the suffering of others.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it a nice place to work. Now, the only problem with that is every now and again you get people who might take advantage of that.
Right.
And
give them an inch, they take a mile.
or they'll
respect.
just
It's a mutual respect of,
And some people will just go into that kind of nurturing environment and just eat it, not just take advantage of it, but actually act malevolently in it. And that ultimately is my main job. A lot of people might think that I get to make, all the really big, complicated technical decisions or the really dodgy, not dodgy, but the really perilous business calls. But actually, most of those are fairly straightforward. It's the curation of the people that is my ultimate responsibility and the hardest.
Yep.
And I get it wrong. I get it wrong more often than I get it right. But I'm getting better at it every time.
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah. I always was happy because I know that I was at one of the seminars that you spoke at in England, and I was always really impressed with you talking about intuition in business because obviously I help people with their businesses, but it's they come to me for different stuff, love advice, life purpose, career, but I really enjoyed listening to your seminar and listening to you talk about intuition in business. And it is a tougher crowd for I personally just think it's a harder sell, but if you're saying that, they are in touch with their intuition, they're just not necessarily broadcasting that. I get it.
It's a harder sell for you. I mean, one of the things that I find delightful about you is you're not your typical, or my image of a psychic medium is a sort of, older lady dressed in black sort of thing. And there you are, sort of stylish LA, LA fashion sort of thing.
Thank you. LA fashion turned Maui, turned Tommy Bahama.
and I think that you then make it accessible to a different audience.
Well, I just don't want to present myself as witchy or anything like that.
Well, exactly, but that
I'm
makes
a
it
sorceress. It's more feminine.
Yeah, exactly. So that means that you're more accessible to a different audience. And I know that
we all have different brands, I guess.
Yeah, but similarly, I have my street cred. I don't need to.
Right.
I have a successful 20-year business, which is, according to my accountants, ludicrously profitable. And for some people, when I speak about the way that I make decisions and think about the world, the fact that I've got that credibility does maybe cause their minds to be a little bit more open than they would be if you rocked up, because they don't believe you've got anything in common with them.
Well, I did have my own company. I was a marketing executive. I had Pavlina Communications before the absolute superhero corporation.
Yeah, I think you're more on path now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
And I think it is fun to see what happens when people's minds begin to open and they realize that maybe they're not quite doing what they thought they were, and that there is again, it's not I must use my intuition. It's, oh, it's there, isn't it? It was there. That was it, wasn't it? Yes. So if I do more of that, then more of it will turn up. Yes. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah, but Simon is also karmic. You have good karma too. You know, you treat people well, you help them, you really come from a place of heart in your business. You know, I feel like you're also getting back what you're giving. You know, I feel like
and I do get that
really
sense.
Deserve your success. You know, you nurture people outside of your company. Like, forget your employees. Like, you nurture everyone around you. I just feel like the universe brings it back to you in different ways.
And that's maybe the next sort of thing to think about is, you know, because I've done a lot of, when I first had my sort of eye-opening experience around intuition and that sort of stuff, that was, you know, the technical aspects of it. That was very interesting. And, you know, you and I did the same course, and then I did a whole bunch of research of my own. I went and did a remote viewing course at the Monroe Institute. That was really eye-opening because that's scientifically provable, testable. But I think the thing I'm now getting more interested in, and, you know, I've had a recent sort of learning experience around karma and all that sort of stuff, is, yeah, that does seem to make a difference. The way you act in the world comes back to you. And, you know, I've been in school about that. I've had a little mini course for the past 6 months on that. And I don't quite understand that yet. I don't think it's as simple as just run around being nice to you and the universe, nice to everybody, and the universe will be nice to you back. I don't think it's that simple. But there's
we all have lessons to learn, so it's meant to teach and to show.
Yeah.
Not to punish.
It's all a lesson. I mean, I think that's
it's learning lessons. It's karmic lessons.
Coming back to a business thing, it's like everyone in the business culture, there's like, this was a failure. It's like, no, it was a learning experience. What did you learn?
Right.
You know. Right.
Pull something positive out of it. Absolutely. Yeah. How does this benefit us? Okay, so basically, like, one of the reasons that, you know, you're passionate about intuition is because of your own personal experience with how it's benefited you using your intuition with your company, your employees, etc. Do you have any advice for people, you know, who maybe have their own company or work at a corporation or whatever? Like, do you have any, you know, I don't know, general advice for them?
Don't make decisions when you're not in a good state.
Okay.
Is number one. And learn to manage your state. And then once you've figured out how to chill out and make space for stuff to turn up. So, you know, don't listen to podcasts every moment of the day. You know, one day a week, drive in silence, see what happens. And then just respect what comes up. You know, and be a little bit careful because you can misinterpret stuff. You know, if you're driving along and you suddenly get this thought that you should sell everything and go and live in a commune, you might want to just sit on that a little bit. You know, again, I tend not to make big decisions. I make lots of small decisions, and just respect what turns up in your head and see what happens. Have fun with it. You know, if you've got a decision to make, think about it doing one way, see how you feel. Think about doing the other way, see how you feel. You know, it's not all about thinking. And then you can dive into, you know, I've rattled through your videos over the years and different clairs and how to manage it and all that sort of thing. You can have a good time with that. But I think just the first step is just being open to it.
Yep. Quiet your mind.
Quiet your mind and take it seriously, whatever what happens. I think this is the problem. It's like, a lot of people will probably have all sorts of interesting stuff flowing into their heads, but because it didn't pop off a spreadsheet or didn't come out of a business book, they don't believe it. I mean, maybe that's the one final thing is, yes, there is knowledge in the world, but particularly if you're running your own company or starting your own company, everything out there is advice. It is not gospel. You will not fulfill your potential without reaching inside and finding out what your potential, what your path is. Picking up a book, I've got a whole warehouse full of books. It's all useful and interesting stuff to reflect on, but it's not the answer. The answer comes from me.
Mm-hmm. The answers are inside of you.
Yeah.
And if you're stressed out or worried, pray for divine guidance. Pray for the answer to come to you.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about the 4 clairs really quick.
Okay.
With regards to quieting your mind, being in nature, meditating, and really kind of opening yourself up to receiving the information. Mm-hmm. There's clairvoyance, which you see images in your head. There's clairaudience, where you can hear them talking to you. There's clairsentience, where you get I just feel like I should whatever. You get like a gut sensation. Maybe your gut feels like nauseous or something that's telling you not to do it. And then the last one is claircognizance, which is clear knowing, where you're just downloading information like an iPod, where you just know. Like, I can't explain it. I just know this is what we should
do. That it used to be my primary one. And the trick there actually is, I can't remember where I read it. I don't even know if it's accurate, but it seems to work for me, is if you just know something, that is probably an intuitive hit. If it arrives within 3 seconds, it takes about 3 seconds for your cognitive brain to think it. Anything after 3 seconds is probably a little bit contaminated by whatever's in, whatever you're making up for yourself. But if you just know something very quickly and very strongly, I would rate that quite high in terms of information. And again, I do a thing about, I have lots of sources of information and none of them are completely reliable. All I do is I just use my intuition and manage that as well as I might manage, say, a sales forecast or something like that. Mm-hmm. But interestingly, just thinking about it, the sort of claircognizance, the clear knowing stuff, that was my first one. And then what's the gut one?
Clairsentience?
Clairsentience. Yeah, so that I am getting much better at, but it's growing. So it's like I started out with one, then I got that, and I am getting, in recent years, clairaudience stuff.
Great.
So it's kind of interesting how it's developed. Which I guess you keep telling it's like a muscle,
It is. It's like a muscle you have to work out at the gym, which is why I'm so big on encouraging people to take intuitive development classes to develop. And you just learn tips and tricks. Like, you can take different intuitive classes from different psychics and you learn different tips and tricks because they all do it differently. And it's all really interesting to hear the methods that they use to literally pull that information from the other side.
I wish there was more.
I do automatic writing. I do a lot of automatic writing. That's what I do during my pre-tunes in my session. Is I tune into a photo of somebody, and then I tune into their spirit guides or their higher self, and I just start writing. Usually, I'll write down questions, and then as I'm finishing writing the question, the answer will come through. I'm all for clairs. So the other side just picks which one they want.
But you see, you do it for your job.
Yeah.
So. Although arguably I kind of do it for my job as well, but I just don't claim it. But I think it's certainly it gets better, and I think also you need to. It is a weak information thing. I was doing the remote viewing thing, and I was like, "This is amazing." It's like, why is this not done more before? And of course, there was a CIA program. But the problem is the effect is weak enough that it doesn't sustain the kind of pressure that management structures put on it. It's like, you should be able to remote view, you should have the right things. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It's weaker than that. But I think just learning how to use that information and getting comfortable with it. And it also brings you, it's quite lonely running a business. Knowing there's an entire universe to support you is actually quite cool.
At least you have coworkers.
Yeah,
that you can see. Like we're just on the other side.
Yeah.
My boss, anything my boss wants me to do, because my boss is God, anything my boss wants me to do has to be channeled. So it better be right. I better not be missing his messages. It better be right.
But you do have a rich sort of world, don't you?
I have a very rich world.
You know, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Never a dull moment. Never bored over here. I'll tell you that.
So when we're talking now and you've got a bunch of questions and that sort of thing, where are those questions coming from?
I wrote them down. I prepared.
Okay.
But yeah, they do talk to me while I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Like they'll tell me to add stuff. Like when I'm at my little whiteboard with my marker, like they'll add stuff into the video.
Yeah. I remember, we have conversations and you'd be like, oh, hang on a minute. This,
Yeah.
It's fun. And I think that is everybody's experience as well. I think we all get that kind of stuff. It's just that because we don't identify it and we just miss it. We go, oh, can't possibly be. It's like, yeah, it is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I had a friend, she said, oh, it feels like I've just had a conversation with you in my head.
Oh, cool.
And I solved a problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And I didn't say anything about it at the time, but it's like, yeah, that happens.
Well, your higher self shows up with me. Like he'll show up like complaining about the rain, or I, recently heard the word squidgy, which we don't use here in the United States. So it means like squishy. Is that like a translation of squidgy? Like, because they were saying like soft heart, like they were using like squidgy heart, like to try to.
Yeah, it's squishy kind of implies it was sort of built to be squishy.
Oh, okay.
Squishy. So cushions are squishy because they were built to be squishy. Squidgy, and this is, it's a very unusual word, I guess, is more, it's not built to be like that, but it's part of its nature,
Okay.
So you might say, just as it would be hard, it would be squidgy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, while I was writing these questions for you, I guess I summoned your higher self somehow. I was writing. I wrote. Your higher self showed up when I wrote this. Simon, I feel like you're coming from a place of heart where you want to encourage people to develop their intuition for practical applications of it. And then I guess when I was like, you're coming from a place of heart, maybe I casted love and light at your soul or something. Because your higher self showed up and said, hey, squidgy. And I was like,
there you go.
now I'm being called squidgy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, we have, this happens occasionally. We have fun with it. We've calibrated it,
Well, you're also one of my spirit guides. So that makes sense why your higher self is hanging around.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. It's like, I don't know what to do with that. And again, I think that's the other thing about intuition and managing it is you don't have to know why, you don't have to know what. You don't even have to explain everything. It's like, so you say that I have some sort of spiritual relationship with you. Okay, I don't know what to do with that. That's interesting. And we just go on and relate as we are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually, well, we were brought on to each other's path by the other side, but that's probably something
that's a whole other video.
I do have a video called Can the Living Be Your Spirit Guide? And I talk about Simon in that video.
Okay.
Spirit guide. So yeah, the living can be your spirit guides, but that's probably also why your higher self shows up.
Actually, I think that's another thing about respecting this stuff is if you do accept there's lots of information around, other people are going to be influenced by that information, whether they, are conscious of it or not.
Right.
And that does sometimes mean recognizing certain people. I've been very blessed in the past few months to have some wonderful people turn up in my life.
Yeah.
And I think if I'd been less open, it might be that I would have not recognized it and not noticed.
Yeah, it's like a receiving energy. Receiving is
exactly.
Not passive, it's active. So it's like an active receiving energy and noticing that and being grateful for it. And the other side is describing it as support. They're saying they brought
accepting support,
onto your path.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe we do another video on what we've learned from the past 6 months. That would be a fun game, wouldn't it?
That'd be cool. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to say, your higher self has, you know, a pretty cool sense of humor. It's funny because it's usually clairaudient where you're talking and I hear your accent. It's your voice, your accent. You'll show up and like sometimes you'll describe my path. Like, you know, if I'm crying, you'll show up out of your higher self will show up out of compassion and just say, I know, I'm sorry. It's going to be hard. You know, it's like your accent, you know, it's going to be hard. I'm like, oh, I know. Yeah. So it's because your higher self is all knowing. He sees everything. Your higher self knows more than you do about me. So he sees everything. So always nice when he shows up. But yeah. I've had clients say, hey, your higher self showed up because I read for intuitive people as well.
Okay.
And I confirm stuff that they're getting for themselves. So they'll be like, hey, your higher self hangs out with you. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't get that as much. I get people. I do get hits of people, certainly. And I do get emotions at a distance sometimes. Certain people who have been quite energetically connected to. I can feel
their
emotions, their real-time emotions. Yeah.
Interesting. Energetically
is,
connected. Wow. Clairsentience. And also, you know, maybe some compassion thrown in. Yeah, because you're empath. So
Yeah. Which again is another thing you got to manage. You know, if you are empathetic, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to turn it off, but you need to manage it or else you're going to go crazy. You know,
right. Taking on everyone else's pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking you can solve it all and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's
really hard. Well, on that note, right. I think we're good. This was a lovely discussion about intuition in business. Unless you have anything to add that you feel like we didn't cover.
I don't think it's been fun. As always, it's been fun.
Awesome. Is there anything that you like mention in your seminars that you feel like, you know, should bring up or anything?
I think I probably said it. I don't know.
All right. Well, I feel like we covered everything, and hopefully people watching this video feel like it was.
I hope it's interesting, and I hope that people feel able to be a little bit more respectful of their own intuition.
Yeah.
Go get a reading and get calibration, but it's there for you every day.
Yeah. Yep. It's there for you every day. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. The information is there. We just have to tune in.
Alrighty.
All right, Mr. Simon. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for enlightening us. And you have yourself a lovely evening there in the UK.
You have to do your end bit now.
Oh, and in the meantime, take care and be well. Thank you.